The room was already breathing in pauses and polished cutlery when it happened. I was standing in the aisle with a recorder in my palm, half hidden between linen napkins and a pillar of glass that looked down on a lit-up Chicago, when the richest man at table 12 raised his flute and asked the black waitress in front of him, "So if you're good with numbers, give me a stock tip." A few phones came up, reflex more than decision. She was holding a tray with 3 scallop plates, and the kind of focus you see on people who can carry 6 plates and still notice someone blinking wrong. She didn't flinch. "Start by unwinding your captive 401k from Hargrove Capital's feeder," she said, steady, not loud. "Stop charging your workers hedge fund fees for their retirement." A woman in a green dress coughed. The billionaire, Elliot Hargrove, 62, navy suit, a tie that reflected 2 inches of light, smiled like there was spinach stuck in his crown. He said something about having a sense of humor. She slid the plates onto the table without looking away. The HVAC hummed like an old vow. I pressed REC. "And because this is the channel where we put truth under good light and let you judge it by the shadows it casts," I said quietly, "like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage." Later, when I replayed the audio, there was a microsecond before her first words, a breath she refused to waste. In that breath, the room decided who was allowed to be right. In that breath, everyone got it wrong. Her name, I learned within an hour, was Amani Carter, 28. She'd introduced herself to me behind the dishwashers where steam fogged a safety poster and a row of cooks watched a phone replay that 30 seconds. A coworker kept saying, "She did not," and then rewinding to prove that she did. "I don't want this to be a thing," she told me, wiping her hands on an apron with small burns like constellations. "I don't want to get fired for it." How did you know what to say?" I asked. Not as an omniscient narrator, but as a person with a notebook, because that's what the old-timers at the paper taught me. "Ask what they saw. Ask what they did." She shrugged. "Public filings," she said. "He boasts. People like that brag on record. It's all there if you read it and don't assume you can't understand it." She had not been guessing. Later, based on Form 5500 filings obtained through the Department of Labor's public database and cross-checked against Hargrove Capital's own promotional materials, I confirmed a structure that was legal but heavy-lidded with conflict. A captive feeder fund that directed a portion of Hargrove Industries' employees' 401k contributions into a proprietary vehicle that charged fees more appropriate to speculative funds than retirement plans. According to a DOL investigator I spoke with off-record, those arrangements get scrutinized when they smell like self-dealing. But on that night, none of us knew the shape of it yet. We had a moment on a phone, and the way a room had gone silent. Elliot Hargrove did 2 things after the scallops. First, he laughed. If you watch the video clip that eventually spread, he looks over at his table of donors and board members. Wide grin says, "We have a comedian. I love it. More wine." Second, he asked her, "What do you know about finance?" And didn't wait for the answer because he didn't expect an answer that mattered. She said, "Enough to know fees take food off plates," and walked away to fetch the wine. That's where the first phone's lowered. That's when he stopped laughing. This is what I know happened next because witnesses stated it, because I saw parts of it, because I've listened to it more often than is probably healthy. A kitchen runner named Jamie texted the video to a sister who posted it to a neighborhood forum with a caption that was not kind to the billionaire. A donor at the table whispered to a comms person who whispered to a security guard who asked the manager to get control of your staff. The manager, white, mid-30s, sleeves rolled to show a watch that was either a fake or irony-proof, told Amani to tone it down and apologize. "I didn't insult him," she replied, standing in the corridor between the bar and the restrooms, where the lighting is designed to be flattering to everyone except those who have to work there. "He asked me a question." He was joking. "So was the fee schedule," she said, and then went back to table 4 to replace a napkin a guest had dropped into his butter dish. I did not know her yet. I knew the manager. He'd given me a polite nod and the kind of press kit that calls a rooftop curated. I had come to cover Chicago's Night of Giving, where philanthropy put on sequins and named new programs that let you donate to education and healthcare while your taxes quietly starved both. It's not that the people were bad, it's that they were very busy being good in a way that photographed well. When the second course came out, I found myself standing near a woman whose job title on her card said Portfolio Strategist, Hargrove Capital. She had small, efficient eyes that suggested she knew where your money slept at night. I asked her, casually, about the line Miss Carter had dropped. She said, with a smile that had been practiced in mirrors, "We comply with all applicable regulations," and then angled herself out of the conversation so gently that I almost thanked her for the courtesy. After the dessert, a chocolate dome with a name like an artisan verb, The program director for Hargrove's foundation went on stage, name lists in hand. She thanked donors and introduced a video about financial literacy programs the foundation had installed in underfunded high schools. In the video, smiling teens sat at computers while a narrator described learning to budget for the future. Amani, I later learned, had watched that same video on her phone in a break room in the days before the gala. They want to teach kids how to not be poor, she told me, but they won't admit to how making money off poor people works. She had said this not as a moral flourish, but as a line item in a spreadsheet. She worked numbers for the breakfast shift's tip pool, and the numbers were always close wins or losses. I caught her just as she was punching out that night. Her apron hung from a hook. She'd changed into a denim jacket with a cigarette burn in the sleeve. She checked her phone and exhaled when she saw nothing from management that looked like a termination. "Can we talk?" I asked. "If it's not on video," she said. "Audio only." She glanced at my recorder. "I know that line. Okay, but you don't use my name unless I say you can. You just said it in a room full of donors." She looked at me then, really looked. A quick assessment that felt like someone reading fine print. "You'll use my name if it helps your story. I get it. I'm asking you to wait until I can't be fired for just existing in front of their money." We sat on milk crates next to a stack of polystyrene. The back door opened to an alley that smelled like everything that had been eaten there. It was quiet, and somehow, because it was quiet, we could hear the kind of city noise that's always there. Tires on damp pavement, some song from a car that never seems to get to the chorus. "I read his filings because I had to write a paper," she said. "City College night class, Finance 201. I picked Hargrove because the professor said, 'Pick a company you admire.' Everyone picked Apple or Nike. I figured, pick someone who eats here, pick something I can ask about on my break." "What did you find?" "I found a feeder fund with a fee structure that makes sense if your goal is to make him richer," she said. "I found a foundation that requires grantees to take their financial literacy course, which is fine, except the course tells them to get a Hargrove-branded debit card." She showed me a flyer on her phone. It had the Hargrove Foundation logo at the top and a photograph of a teenager smiling over a stack of books. There were bullet points about budgeting, about compound interest, about the power of savvy banking choices. At the bottom, participants receive a special debit card to track their goals. The fine print, which she had screenshotted and zoomed in on, disclosed a $4.95 monthly maintenance fee. "I don't like euphemisms," she said. "If you take $4.95 from a kid's lunch money, at least call it what it is." "Did you send this to anyone?" "I sent it to the foundation's public email," she said. "I also sent a question to a DOL email address that was at the bottom of one of the 5,500 forms. No one answered." I looked at the flyer and felt the familiar reporter mix of anger and appetite. "I can try to get someone to answer," I said. "But I need more than this. I need a person inside who will talk." She looked down the alley toward the street. "Ask the dishwasher how many times his paycheck bounced last fall," she said. "Ask the line cooks why their overtime accidentally doesn't show up unless someone photographs the schedule. Ask anyone who cleans your house how hard it is to tell a boss that what he's doing feels wrong. Will you go on record?" She nodded no. "Not until I know who I'd be protecting if I did." 2 days later, my inbox pinged with an email from an address that looked like a joke. numbers/nerd@proton. It contained 3 attachments, a PDF of Hargrove Industries' 401k plan document, a spreadsheet titled Fee Comparisons, XLSX, and a photograph of a printed memo. The memo, on Hargrove letterhead, was dated 6 months earlier. It was from Director of Employee Benefits to all HR managers, and included this line: "Steer employees to the premier growth pathway, the captive feeder, whenever possible. Emphasize potential for superior returns over low-fee alternatives." The spreadsheet compared fees between the feeder fund and several low-cost index funds available in the plan. The feeder's expense ratio was listed at 1.95%. The index funds were between 0.03% and 0.15%. The difference over time was not an abstraction. It was the dishwasher's braces and the line cook's car repair and the overnight shift's childcare. "Good source?" I texted Amani via an encrypted app. "Better than good," she replied. "He's tired." He turned out to be a mid-level HR manager at a Hargrove-owned distribution center in Joliet. We met in a booth at a diner where no one would think it unusual to see a man in his 50s cry into his coffee. He did not cry. He did hold the memo like a confession. "I told them this felt wrong," he said. "I said my brother is in that plan. I said we're supposed to set people up so they retire into dignity, not into your boat. They said, hey, don't be dramatic. This is sophisticated investment." He asked me not to use his name. He showed me emails. He introduced me to a payroll clerk who showed me something else. A pattern of bounced checks at Hargrove's subsidiary restaurants over 8 weeks. Then a flurry of corrections that left some workers short and made them feel either crazy or powerless. According to an attorney at a nonprofit legal clinic I consulted, those patterns often appear in companies that are growing faster than their ethics. When I asked Hargrove Industries for comment, the spokesperson sent a statement: "We are proud of our commitment to our workforce and our communities. Any suggestion otherwise is misinformed. Hargrove Industries' retirement plan outperforms benchmarks over time and is a model of innovation." The attached PDF included a graph with no axes labeled. The next time I saw Amani, she was not at the restaurant. She was in a church basement with a whiteboard and 20 people who looked like they had either just left work or were about to go. She had drawn 2 lines on the board. One said 1.95%, the other said 0.05%. She drew a child's lunchbox at the end of the lower fee line and a yacht on the higher one. No one laughed. Everyone smiled, the kind of smile you get when someone tells you your body knows what it knows. "Do you have a license to do this?" a woman asked from the back. She held a baby with a captain's gaze. "I'm not selling anything," Amani said. "I'm telling you what you already own." I didn't record that meeting on camera. I stood by the coffee urn and took notes on who said yes when she asked if they'd sign a letter to the deal. Everyone but one person signed. The man who didn't was quiet and then left first. Later, a security guard at the distribution center told me that a manager had been in the parking lot that evening making a list. Once the letter went out, with 23 signatures, 5 typed pages, and 15 attachments, things moved like they do when bureaucracy makes the right kind of noise. A week later, according to a DOL email reply obtained by me through the HR source, the agency had opened a preliminary inquiry. A month after, the Illinois Attorney General's office sent Hargrove Industries a notice that looked like nothing and meant everything. In those weeks, Hargrove tried a different tactic. He invited Amani to have coffee. He did not call her, his assistant did. The assistant, her voice had the careful syllables of someone who hired and fired babysitters for a living, said that Mr. Hargrove was deeply sorry for any misunderstanding and wanted to learn more about her perspective. "On record?" Amani asked. "I'm sorry. Will there be a recorder on the table?" "We had not considered." "Then the answer is no, unless I can bring people." "Which people?" "The ones you call stakeholders when you don't want to say workers." There is something elegant about watching the underestimated negotiate. It's not revenge, it's accuracy. It's not humiliation, it's gravity finding itself. A week later, in a conference room with glass walls overlooking Grant Park, Amani sat at one end of a long table with an ERISA attorney the legal clinic had found pro bono, 2 employees from the distribution center, and a community pastor whose presence made the room look like it had a conscience. On the other end, Hargrove sat with his general counsel, the portfolio strategist, and a PR man who kept trying not to sweat. I sat against the wall with my recorder on the table, like a small, polite animal. The PR man said this meeting was off the record. I said not for me if they consent. The attorney nodded, the pastor nodded, Amani nodded. "Then on background," the PR man tried. "This isn't an English class," the ERISA attorney said. "We're here to talk about fees." Hargrove spoke first. "I want to apologize," he said. And he didn't look at her, he looked at me. "I made a joke in poor taste. I'm sorry." "Thank you," she said. "The thing you should apologize for costs more than that." The attorney slid a copy of the memo across the table. The general counsel said he hadn't seen it before. The HR manager who had given it to me would later tell me, in a text, they always haven't seen it. "What's your ask, Wimwa?" Hargrove said, which is a sentence that tells you everything and then tries to make you forget it said it. "Remove the captive feeder as a default," the attorney said. "Refund excessive fees to plan participants, stop marketing bank products through the foundation's grantee programs, bring in an independent fiduciary." The room was quiet for a full 10 seconds. The PR man arranged his water bottle cap so it faced the door. The strategist watched the attorney like she was reading a chart that might turn red. "We can make adjustments," Hargrove said finally. "But let's be realistic." Amani cut in. "Realistic is the dishwasher who sleeps in his car on Wednesdays because his second job is across town," she said. "Realistic is your foundation making kids sign up for another way to get charged a fee because you needed a press release that didn't mention the word payroll. Realistic is your head of benefits telling HR to steer instead of inform." "Are you a lawyer?" he asked, and it wasn't as insulting as it was irrelevant. "I'm a waitress," she said. "I'm the one you asked for a stock tip." He smiled then, reflexively, and then stopped. "We will review," he said. "We will too," the attorney replied, and slid across a printed draft of a class action complaint. Phone cameras can ruin a room faster than any loud noise. They can also keep a room honest. There were none here. There were documents instead. Documents leave fingerprints that don't wash off with statements. The story could have gone a different way then. He could have leaned into humiliation and bought fuel for it. His PR team could have wrapped Amani in an apology and offered her a scholarship named after his mother. They tried. They hinted. She said, on the record, I don't want anything with his name on it near my goals. What she wanted, I learned, was specific. She wanted Hargrove Industries to remove the feeder fund option entirely. She wanted, if they kept it, clear disclosures in plain language mailed to every participant. She wanted the foundation to fund a genuinely independent financial coaching program run by a coalition of churches, nonprofits, and the city colleges, and she wanted those coaches to be paid a living wage without referral kickbacks to Hargrove products. People always want to own the solution, she told me. But if you own it, you can ruin it and call it innovation. In the weeks that followed, things happened that I can cite. A DOL letter escalated from preliminary inquiry to investigation. The AG's office issued a civil investigative demand. A Hargrove board member resigned. An internal email chain, forwarded to me by a person who wrote, this will make me feel less sick, included a line from the general counsel. We have to stop saying steer in writing. At the restaurant, the manager put Amani on the lunch shift. Less exposure, he said, and then put her back on nights after the owner watched the video and recognized press if he fired her. You're bringing heat, he said to her, while pretended to play benevolent. We don't want heat. Then fix the oven, she replied, and the line cooks laughed hard enough to make the dishwasher look up. The second turning point came not in a boardroom, but in a gymnasium that smelled like old rubber and new hope. The AG's office scheduled a public listening session in a South Shore high school. Metal folding chairs made a circle that felt like civic responsibility at last remembering its legs. A DOL representative sat next to a union organizer. A city council member took notes by hand. The audience, about 100, included teachers, warehouse workers, pastors, a nurse, 2 teenage boys who had seen the video and wanted to see what real courage looked like. I'll be brief, Amani said when it was her turn. She stood in the middle like she was about to toss a ball and asked everyone to bring their eyes to the whiteboard. This is a long fight, she said, so we can waste time, but not this time. She wrote 3 numbers, 195, 0.05, and 35. This is 2%, she said, tapping the first. This is almost nothing, she said, tapping the second. This is how many years someone might work for him, she said, tapping the last. If you add 2% of someone's sweat to a billionaire's pile for 35 years, you're not investing, you're extracting. I watched the DOL representative's face. She did not nod. She did not give away anything. But after, in a hallway that smelled like damp winter coats, she said, please make sure your people keep their documents. The dates matter. The next week, someone leaked the compensation package for the Director of Employee Benefits. It was high. That's not a crime. What is a crime is when you threaten people for asking about their money. According to affidavits later filed in court, at least 3 employees were told that causing trouble about your 401k would not go well for your career. Those 3 had signed the letter at the church. 2 worked at the warehouse. 1 worked at corporate. None of them recanted. It's funny, one told me. They pay me $52,000 to keep a secret that cost my mom $200,000. I called Hargrove. For comment. He did not pick up. His spokesperson sent a statement about a few disgruntled individuals and our commitment to leading in responsible corporate citizenship. On page 2 of the statement, in a paragraph nobody was supposed to read, there was a line about hiring an independent fiduciary to review plan offerings. Progress, phrased like a weather report. On a wet Tuesday in May, a civil complaint was filed in federal court. Sanchez et al. V. Hargrove Industries, alleging violations of ERISA, breach of fiduciary duty, self-dealing, and prohibited transactions. The complaint quoted plan documents I had seen, memos I had read, emails I had printed and put face down on my kitchen table out of some old superstition. Amani was not a named plaintiff. She had chosen not to be, for reasons that felt like a list and sounded like a life. She needed a job. She needed time. She needed to not spend the next 3 years being a defendant in rich people's countersuits. But she was included in the narrative, referred to as a worker who raised concerns at a public event. The judge granted an initial motion to certify the class. The DOL filed an amicus brief that read like a lecture in Fiduciary Duty 101. The case moved, slow like it moves, and in the moving, something in the story moved too. In interviews, workers started telling me, Not just what had been taken, but what they wanted. I want to be the one who decides if my money goes to a yacht or a lunchbox, a forklift operator named Bree said. I want transparency, the dishwasher said. I want the dignity of understanding, a bookkeeper said. Hargrove, to his credit or his calculation, started making changes before the court forced him to. He announced, in a press conference where the first 3 questions were about something else entirely, that the feeder would no longer be the default option. He pledged to refund fees to plan participants that exceeded reasonable levels. He said, "Whoa, we can always do better." Did you need a lawsuit to discover your conscience? A reporter asked. I needed context, he said, and then looked at the floor in a way that suggested someone had told him humility photographs well. After the press conference, he walked down a hallway where a mural showed a stylized city skyline. Amani was there. She hadn't come for him. She'd come because the legal clinic had asked her to speak on a panel about workers, philanthropy, and power. She and he passed each other like weather systems. He paused. Ms. Carter, he said. Yes, Mr. Hargrove, she said. I hear congratulations are in order, he said. Someone told me you were accepted into a program at city colleges. Finance? Accounting, she said. Numbers are less slippery if you make them come home at night. I'd like to fund... No. She didn't let him finish. No scholarships. If you feel generous, pay your workers what you promised. Fund the clinic. Fund the coaches who don't sell your cards. I don't need your name on anything I'll be proud of. He nodded, a movement that lasted a beat longer than ego usually allows. Fair, he said. I do not know what he thought then. I'm not inside his head. But I know what he did. He asked his assistant to schedule a meeting with the coalition of churches and nonprofits Amani had assembled. He wrote a check. He did not ask for naming rights. He did ask for a quarterly report. He said, I'm a fiduciary. The pastor said, so are we. The restaurant did not fire Amani. They gave her more shifts. People came to sit in her section and pretended it was for the cuisine. She did not let the joke write itself. She refilled their water, and when someone said, you're the finance girl, she said, I'm a person. That summer, the city colleges announced a new certificate program in community financial coaching, created not by a foundation but by a consortium of public and nonprofit institutions. The first cohort included men and women whose names I could list like a poem: Bree the forklift operator, Rosa the home health aide, Malik the mechanic. Amani was there, not at the front, but in the 3rd row, taking notes on how to teach someone to spot a fee hiding behind a friendly word. What's next? I asked her in a coffee shop where the table rocked no matter how many napkins we folded under the leg. Nothing fancy, she said. I want to make a living telling the truth about numbers. What about him? I nodded toward a newsfeed headline where Hargrove had announced he was stepping down as CEO to spend more time on philanthropy. He has good lawyers, she said. He also has good days and bad days, like anyone. If he keeps his promises, he'll have more good days that mean something. Do you forgive him? I asked, because sometimes you ask a question to hear the silence that follows. I don't carry him around, she said. He doesn't get to be heavy in my pockets. He's not a bill. He's a lesson. The day the settlement was announced, no admission of wrongdoing, of course, and a check that would take a lot of numbers to describe. The warehouse let out early. People gathered in the parking lot where a food truck had been booked by someone with good instincts. They said things like, we did it, and about time, and let me see the paperwork. Amani held a copy of the settlement terms. She ran her finger down the parts that mattered. She pointed to clauses that could sneak back and bite if no one watched. You're not a lawyer, someone reminded her. I'm not, she said. I'm a person who reads. The lawsuit wasn't the end of anything. It rarely is. There are always new memos written by new people who believe they invented a new way to word old greed. There are always PowerPoint slides that make an extraction look like a sunrise. But there are also other people now who know how to say no in a language that files in triplicate. I asked her once, late, in the alley behind the restaurant where we had first talked, if she ever wished she had stayed silent that night, laughed at his joke, moved on. She took a breath. Silence costs too, she said. You pay it up front or you pay interest. We're telling this story because the ending is not neat, but the line is clear. The moral inversion happened not because a billionaire learned he had a heart. It happened because a woman who carried plates and truth at the same time refused to put either down, and because other people decided they were tired of paying a fee for being right. In the closing scene, I will not narrate from above. I'll tell you where I was. I was in a classroom with bad chairs and good dry erase markers. Amani had written 3 new numbers, 0.00, 0.03, and 100. Free checking, she said, underlining the first. An index fund, she said, tapping the second. Percent of people who deserve dignity, she said, and drew a circle around the last. The room was quiet, on purpose. Like and subscribe for more stories that challenge prejudice and celebrate courage, I said, because the channel is a promise to keep showing you the work of turning a joke into a ledger that finally balances. On my way out, the janitor asked me if any of this would matter in 5 years. I told him what Amani had told me. Numbers are less slippery if you make them come home at night. He smiled and said, "Good night." And I wrote it down exactly like that so I wouldn't pretend later that the ending was more glamorous than it was. We think justice is a gavel. It's not. It's a person showing up with a pen, writing the fee schedule where anyone can see it, and then standing there long enough that someone has to either sign or change the terms. If there is a quote to keep this one. Respect begins where curiosity replaces mockery. And if there is a question to ask the one Amani asked the richest man in the room without ever saying it aloud. Do you want your money to be smart, or do you want it to be right? The best nights in the city are those when the answer sounds like both.